Hi, I'm Jess.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are the Iggy Parents! Welcome to our show. This is our official first episode. So
we have recorded the pilot and are planning to upload them together. So there should be 2 or 3 episodes uploaded on the first day.
And if you missed it, that's okay. We're just starting from the beginning here.
Yeah,
but
so
if you want more info,
we'll give you another little look at who we are and what our story is. Yeah. So how about you start by telling them about why we got an Iggy and what an Iggy is.
So Iggy, short form for Italian Greyhound. And honestly, we thought we were looking for a whippet. So we were sitting in an airport coming home from a trip from New York. And we had this idea that we wanted a puppy together. We just got married. And we started thinking, well, what kind of dog would we want? We want something small. We're always going to be living in an apartment. We love the big city. And we also have to deal with allergies. So I, Jess here, am allergic to dogs for the most part. So I was looking for a small breed that was also potentially hypoallergenic. And when we started looking for that, we also had one more credential. We didn't want to have to deal with grooming. So that's a tall order.
Right. Yeah. That seems to be most of the dogs that are hypoallergenic then have more hair-like fur.
Which you need to get groomed, which is 1, very expensive, and 2, very high maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't take care of it, then you're never going to get a consistent look with your dog. And yeah, I really wanted something that would be
consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were looking, and initially we thought, oh, what about that dog that Seth Meyers has?
And what about that dog that Jenna Marbles has?
So Ryan types in Jenna Marbles Whippet, and then we realize
Italian Greyhound. I'd never heard that phrase before, or that of that breed before.
Yeah, I think I'd heard of them, but I didn't. It would never have popped into my mind.
Mm-mm.
When I thought of this dog, I really thought Whippet. So our eyes have been opened.
Yep.
And we hope yours have been too, because these sweet little creatures are very unique. And I'm sure Whippets share a lot of similarities, but Italian Greyhounds are kind of their own unique little animal. So we settled on the Italian Greyhound, and this all kind of fell into our lap. So, Ryan, do you want to explain how we got Adelaide?
Yeah. So we were on a trip to New York and searched for Italian Greyhound, and then we're just searching for Italian Greyhound puppies. The first place we went, or when you search for that, the first result is Kijiji here in Ontario. It's like Craigslist, but the Canadian version. I don't think they're in the States. Are they? No. And we saw a few results. And one of which was the breeder that we ended up going with, Shalane, with Lady Day Kennels. And we did not realize how lucky it was that we happened to be searching right at that time.
Our timing was it's a miracle.
Yeah.
I can't believe we had seen those Italian Greyhound puppies, but then also there was a lone Italian Greyhound left in Toronto that we set up an appointment with.
Mm-hmm. It was a dog that seemed to have been bred by mistake, but was still purebred.
Yeah, and the last one of its litter available.
Yeah. So a friend of mine for our wedding got us a gift of a 5-year journal, which has been very fun because we've just crossed over in the last couple of months being married for a year. So we've been seeing our entries from a year ago. And so just a few weeks ago was when we were in New York, this time last year. And then it was about a week later that we went to visit Adelaide for the first time.
I think it was June 2nd?
8th or 6th?
No, I think it was June 2nd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had a picture of her and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So very soon after we started searching for the dogs, we went to see them. And
we're very focused people.
Yeah.
If we want to do something, if we want to get something done, we make it happen.
Yeah.
Including finding the pet of our dreams.
Yeah. And also starting a podcast. I think we first talked about this like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. But
well, it had been floating around, but talking about doing it seriously.
Works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a natural extension of having a blog, right? Where we're talking more about topics than just a caption on Instagram.
And we wanted an Instagram for our dog before we got her.
Right. And we definitely didn't know about how thriving the Iggy Instagram community is.
No, because I had a joint account with my old roommate about our joint custody toy poodle. And I already had experience on dog Instagram, but the toy poodle world is nowhere near the Italian Greyhound world on Instagram. Let me tell you, these owners are passionate. They're creative.
And they're all over the world. It's so fun to talk to people all over the world. We've talked to people in South Africa and Australia and all over the States and Canada.
And the funniest statistics for us as well, our followers primarily are from Toronto, if you look at the cities. But then if you look at across the world, we have more American followers than we do Canadian. So that's incredible. To all of our followers and listeners that are in America, thank you. That's really cool.
Yeah, but I think the highest of any specific place is 6%. So like it's a very spread. It's not dedicated to North America by any means.
No. And one of her top cities is also Adelaide, which makes me happy. On that note, should we explain why we named her Adelaide?
We can, yeah. We have 3 reasons that we named her Adelaide. 1, Guys and Dolls. That's the main one, I think.
Definitely. Guys and Dolls is one of the shows I did after school from graduating in Boston.
We're both musical theater people. And by people, I mean working professionals, not just fans, but we are also fans. We definitely went to New York on our honeymoon and saw shows constantly.
Absolutely.
But Adelaide from Guys and Dolls, just to back up one step, we also wanted a old lady name.
Yes, I think we were watching a lot of Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
When we were on this search. And we thought, wow, these little Italian greyhounds look so dainty. And if we got a female, I think that she would just match one of those lady names like Mary or Edith or Sybil. And we actually were potentially going to name our puppy Edith, but we tried to match the look of the dog with the name.
There were 7 dogs available from the breeder and 3 females, and we had said that we wanted a female. And 2 of them were lighter colored. One was dark. One was crazy. That's this one. The highest energy of the bunch, that when I was holding her, she's 3 weeks old when we went to visit, I'm holding her and she does a cartwheel out of my lap.
And that's when we first heard an Iggy scream. If you don't know what that is, it's this high-pitched, crazy scream. Kind of sounds like they think they're dying. Kind of like a pig squealing. It's pretty menacing and scary, but it's usually over nothing. I mean, it's still traumatic, but they'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But they think it is.
So we had 3. There was 2 light-colored, 1 dark-colored. We decided if we got one of the light-colored, because we were 3rd on the list, if we got one of the light-colored, we would name her Edith or Edie. And if we got the dark-colored one, we would call her Adelaide.
Which we learned is called seal coloring.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
But the darker color one.
Yes. I'm saying the lighter colored ones because they were fawn and blue fawn, so they weren't the exact same color. And then she is seal. Thank you.
Yeah, which we love now. So cool. But yeah, so Adelaide because of Guys and Dolls.
Right. Okay.
Adelaide because it's an old lady name.
Jess also works at a bar studio that is on Adelaide Street in Toronto.
So happened to see Adelaide all the time.
She was being subliminally primed for it for the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
And the number one place that I want to visit is Australia. And I know about Adelaide, Australia, because one of my favorite podcasters, Brady Heron, who's also a YouTuber, is from Adelaide, Australia, and talks about how great it is, or how great it was to grow up there. I've been hearing about Adelaide on Hello Internet for a long time.
If you had any wonder why we named her Adelaide, there are plenty of reasons. She's very firmly named Adelaide. And we thought at first we would maybe call her Addie, but we tried it. We just don't like it.
No.
It's okay if other people call her that. Sometimes people call her that for short.
Yeah.
And I'm totally fine with it. But we'll always call her Adelaide.
Yeah.
The main topic of this episode is revisiting our top 5 tips for raising an Iggy.
So this was a blog post that we wrote in October to look at how the first few months had gone and what advice we would have given ourselves when we first got her. So our top 5 tips for ourselves. And now that she is a year old, we're going to revisit those tips.
See what's still true and see if maybe we'd add anything or take anything away. If something now doesn't work, we'll just see.
So we've both had a read over that blog post, which you'll be able to find in the show notes. I'll first start off by saying the intro to this blog post. I'm just going to pick up the iPad here.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't read the blog post, we're just going to talk about it, and then we'll explain our revisit soon after.
So we wanted to talk about some traits that are true of Iggy's that we heard about from owners when we first got her and that we've mostly basically found to be true with her. That the Iggy's have small bladders and are hard to potty train. They can be anxious. They are Velcro dogs and they stick to you. They have weak legs, so they're prone to leg breaks. And they are hard to crate train because Italian Greyhound, that term, that name actually comes from their popularity during the Renaissance in Italy.
So we've heard.
That's the urban legend.
Word on the
their
street.
Name. So they were bred to be bed warmers, basically, to love the person that was their owner, stay with them, get into bed with them, keep their feet warm.
I wonder if that's why they go well in groups too, because they would have like seven dogs in a bed or something. I'm picturing.
Right. You gotta be comfy with your bedmates.
Yeah. All the while, Ryan is saying this with Adelaide fast asleep on his lap. So
it's definitely held true for her.
Absolutely.
Even though not all of those things are exactly true about her, but we will talk about that once we get into the tips.
Here are 5 tips for raising an Iggy. 1, identify your number 1 priority for your specific needs and nail it. For us, we prioritized potty training, specifically on pee pads, because we live in a condo. 2, get social. We signed Adelaide up for puppy socialization classes just 2 days after bringing her home. 3, have your training methods and resources at hand and always ready. We used Zach George's first book and training videos to help even at 3 a.m. when we were exhausted and lost. It really helped. 4, safe-proof the house for jumping. When your Iggy is old enough to jump onto furniture, you've got to be hyper-vigilant about the jumping to prevent injury. 5, crate/pen training can be easy if you start from day 1. We'll explain more.
Shall I start this one? Okay. For your number 1 priority, ours definitely was potty training. That was the thing that Iggy owners had warned us about the most, I would say.
And I think it's the most important if you live in a condo.
Yeah.
Because the fear of having to deal with accidents is just very stressful if you don't have a means of letting them out into a backyard.
Yeah. I think that was a great choice for us. And I just wanted to give some other people an option about what could be their main priority that I think would be just as valuable. So if you have a backyard and potty training is as easy as letting them out as soon as they cry, some other options might be working on socialization or leash reactivity. So for her, she really wants to go and meet dogs whenever she's on the leash. And still to this day, at over a year old, she still pulls and wants to go meet other dogs. And then I would say socialization is kind of, I know that's a broad term, but I'm saying it as the opposite, that it's if your dog is nervous, to make sure they get out. That is one of our other tips. But if your dog is especially nervous,
make that your number 1.
And make that your number 1 priority. Another, I would say, would be recall and name recognition. That if one of your priorities is to go out and take your dog to the park, take your dog on walks. We've really been enjoying going to High Park to take her on the walking trails. I feel like only just recently do we have good enough recall with her to feel comfortable doing that. But if that's something that you love to do, then you can make that your number 1 priority.
Yeah, so I think that our number 1 tip still rings true. For me, I would still argue that potty training was the most important thing for us. So I definitely hold that belief. I also have other ideas of things to focus on. For me, I would add it as another tip just because finding your number one priority and nailing it, I think that until you've nailed it, I think that if we tried all of the different methods that we've now been trying, it would have been overwhelming and we might not have succeeded at the potty training. So other things that I have thought about have been desensitization. That's like the big theme that has been going on with Adelaide since we've nailed the potty training. And finding the trends for her. So identifying any behavioral problems that might become trouble in the future. So like biggest thing for us, I would say desensitizing. We were recommended in the beginning to touch her paws to get her used to the feeling of people touching her paws. And then the nail clipping would get better. But for us, sadly, we tried that and it just seems to be something she really, really hates. She hates having her paws touched. She hates putting on clothes. The irony, we have her sitting on Ryan's lap here in clothes, but it's a struggle to get her into them. And then when she's in them, sometimes she tries to wriggle out.
And we can see a noticeable behavior change in her, that she's not as active. She's a little bit sluggish.
She changes her mood.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, so we can get into more of these later. But
I have some things to say about that a little later too.
Exactly. I'm glad we're on the same page, Ryan.
Yeah.
But all I want to say is I still think that choosing your number one priority is key and never letting up on it. And you'll find success that way and not feel overwhelmed as the parent.
So the one other thing that I wanted to add to this tip was some suggestions of what not to make your number one priority.
Oh, great, Ryan.
Let's
hear it.
The biggest thing is don't make doing tricks with your dog your number one priority. I know that so many things can be, I mean, she was really sitting with us in the first week, in the first few days. And and if we went with that instinct, if we were trying to listen to what she was good at, what she did, then she might never have nailed potty training. Right? If she's only good at listening to the things that you want her to do when you're in a training session, then the other aspects of her life can suffer for that.
And the potty training is not exactly easy. I mean, Adelaide was amazing. The biggest thing we would do is watch her behavior. So if she went to go squat in the corner of the room, we knew, oh, she's in the corner. She likes to hide when she pees. She likes to find a safe spot. Looks like she's about to squat. We picked her up, put her back into her pen where the pee pads are, and let her finish out her pee on the pee pad. So which then
led to some pee, like trails of pee going from where she was to the pee pads,
which is not
more
glamorous.
Than once. But then we use a certain kind of spray. I'll put a link in the show notes to the spray that we use. That it's not just Febreze or Lysol wipes. That you actually want a specific kind of spray that will eliminate pet odors.
So they don't pee on the same spot.
Right, because if they can smell it, that's where they want to pee.
Yeah, it's something about breaking down the enzymes or something in the pee to...
I know, an enzymatic cleaner. I think that's the term.
Anyways, so we did have some elegant trails of pee across our floor. So it's not glamorous to work on the potty training, and I'm sure many of you have many stories about that too. That was our number one priority. Nailed it. Felt comfortable. And then we were able to work on other things.
So our second tip is to make sure that your dog gets social.
Woo! I don't mean Instagram.
All right. No, that's very important. Sorry, I'm revising. That's now our number one tip.
Get on Instagram.
Get in Instagram.
But that's a selfish reason because I want to follow your dog.
I know. If you met us in person, you would think that was our number one priority because we always ask if you have an Instagram for your dog.
If I ask you if you have an Instagram, it's just because I want to follow your dog.
Yeah.
I love following all the cute dogs online. It's so cute.
But what we actually mean is socialization. So making sure that your dog is comfortable in all kinds of different situations. We started taking her to puppy socialization class within her first week at When Hounds Fly, which is just around the corner from us here in Toronto. And they have a class that's for puppies that they come and they work on basic skills like sit and recall and things like that, but then also have time to interact with each other.
It's like recess.
Yeah.
It's so cute to watch too. I think it's really great to have those classes because it's catered towards dogs, especially in the city, when you can't take your dog out without interacting with stranger dogs.
Because
there's the risk of...
Yeah, if they don't have their vaccinations yet, you can't be sure.
Yeah, there's the risk of exposing them to viruses?
I think so. Disease? Sickness,
all the bad things.
Yeah.
The things that the vaccines are preventing.
Yeah.
You're exposing your dog.
We're not experts on this podcast.
We're not experts. Okay. We just know.
Yeah.
Don't let your dog mix with the other dogs. And we've even heard even the smelling of the urine of a dog could be troublesome for your pup when they haven't been vaccinated.
So even if you're going to bring your dog on a walk on a quiet street, when you're sure no one else is around, you still have to be watching them and make sure that they're staying clear of puddles.
Yeah. So it's nice and comforting for the owners, for us as parents, to be able to bring our pup to this socialization class because all of these dogs are in the same situation. They've not been mingling with stranger dogs. They are within the vaccination period before they get their final vaccines. And they're also usually around the same size. Even the big puppies are still small enough that no one's potentially getting hurt in playtime. And if they need to be divided, they put up dividers. It's a really great system.
So did you have suggestions about this?
I think that for us, we lucked out that Adelaide is very outgoing. So the first time we went to puppy socialization, she was very shy. I remember, and reading in the blog, we talked about this. There was a husky that barked and she kind of was shaking in her boots. But after the first class, she really built up her courage. And honestly, she has met Great Danes. She's met full Greyhounds. No fear. She will be the Neapolitan Mastiff.
She will be the first to greet a dog at the dog park.
Absolutely.
She's the one who's sticking her nose through the fence while they're getting unleashed.
She will leave the other dogs that she's playing with, see a new dog, race to go meet that dog, and then continue playing or invite them into the group. Yeah. It's really cute to see a little ambassador Iggy. Yeah.
She's like the maitre d'.
Yeah. Also, we've seen Italian Greyhounds are sometimes cliquey. They like to hang out with the dogs that look like them. Maybe it's a comfort level. They know how to play with each other. They like to egg each other on and chase.
And they can match each other's energy level.
Yeah, but in puppy socialization, she had no other Italian Greyhounds to play with.
No.
We didn't luck out to have another Italian Greyhound in puppy class. So I think that it was a great experience for her as well to meet other breeds and get comfortable with that.
The only thing that I was going to add is that I wish I knew about BFF Play Care earlier.
Oh, yeah. So if you live in Toronto, there's a really cool place that has Puppy Power Hour on, it was Thursdays at 8. Don't know
if and when that will be open, but
you know.
You could look for this kind of thing wherever you are, that there's puppy socialization classes, which is about skills, and then this play hour, which was about just recess. Just an hour of recess.
So fun. And like gym.
That is gym. Where she first got to play with another Italian Greyhound.
It's true. Her half-brother. And yeah, they get a full hour as well. In puppy class, they're also learning skills and you're separated and it's focus time and learning. But in full puppy hour, they just play. There's no treats, no toys.
Nope.
They just are socializing.
Yep.
And at this specific place where we go or went, you have to be under a year old. And under
30 pounds.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Under 30 pounds.
Not a problem that we had to deal with for her. But.
No. But yeah, so we'd highly recommend looking in your area if you have something like that, because It's so important.
Our next tip number 3, is to have your training resources on hand.
Ooh.
So our top training resource has been Zach George and his YouTube channel and his book. We even lent his book to a friend of ours who just got a puppy in the last month or a little bit more than a month.
Yeah.
But that his methods and his way of explaining things really works for me, and I feel like also for you. And I'm very thankful to have that to refer back to.
Yeah. And I feel like Zach George really went in line with our puppy school and now dog school with positive reinforcement.
Yeah, there was no contradictions between what we were learning online.
Movement that when I grew up with my family dog, Chloe the Jack Russell, I would not have known anything about these techniques, because reading about the history of it, it was kind of an underground method that then made its way into the popular culture. That we were training our dogs with some negative reinforcement and not really seeing results, seeing aggression in dogs. And I just remember reading about it, and it really opened my eyes. I took this opportunity to look at it new and fresh. That the way we are going to raise this puppy is with positive reinforcement. Zach George is teaching it. Our dog school is teaching it. This other book that we also read that was really great.
Training the Best Dog Ever.
Yes.
By Dawn Sylvia Straswitzk and Larry Kay. Link in the show notes for both of those books. I sometimes even forget that it's a specific method that we use. It just feels like the method to me, this positive reinforcement.
Right.
She responds so well to it. Once we get her attention, she knows we have treats. She knows it's a training session, and she's ready to go along with whatever we're doing. Did you have any suggestions or other thoughts about this?
We talked about like bookmarking things and saving YouTube videos. I think I would maybe make an effort to revisit them more often, because I think that sometimes we would get frustrated in our training with her and we'd go, oh no, why isn't she doing what we want her to do? If we had picked up the book more often. I think it's like staying consistent with it, because we said have them at hand, but make it a routine. Like once a week, go back to your books and read.
Yeah, I also got frustrated that it'd be like, okay, I'm going to do a training session. Sit. What else should I do? Right? That there's so many valuable skills that I just, like, when it's just the two of us, but me and Adelaide, the two of us, that I can't think of what it is that we need to work on. If I had had the resources on hand, that it would have been more, those training sessions could have been more productive.
I also think that the new thing we've started on our Instagram, Training Tuesdays, is a great way to be more accountable for these things. So we just started filming ourselves training Adelaide, and some of the behaviors that we're working on with her are a little bit more applicable outside of the house. Instead of doing the trick just within your four walls, we're taking it to the dog park and having the challenge of distractions. We're working on things that are actually going to help us to focus our dog when we're in public and not just sit, stay, jump, etc. Biggest thing for me would be to have your resources on hand, but be more consistent about it. That's my biggest point.
And I also want to take note that there are more places, even within the last year, where people are posting really good, useful information. Posting it on Instagram, IGTV. They're posting it on TikTok. And some of these places are even more digestible and precise. That if you have like a 1 minute TikTok, really you can get a lot of information in that little bit of time for how to get your dog to go back to bed at 3 a.m. Right? I need that piece of information. It is 3 a.m. How do I find that?
I'm desperate.
Yeah, I'm desperate. And then you don't have to watch a whole long video about it. You can really be precise about the help that you can get.
I also think that with COVID-19, we have become more accustomed to online learning. So a lot of virtual learning. So a lot of dog schools have been offering Zoom classes and also Instagram Live. So also as a fitness professional, I have learned about the beauty of reaching people online. It's a nice way that you can reach people in their homes and maybe address problems with your dog's behavior actually within the home. So
Right. So I hadn't thought of that. That it can be interactive. That's another really useful aspect to learning online.
For sure.
Good thought. Okay. Shall I go on to number 4?
Continue.
Tip number 4, safe proof for jumping, which is make sure your apartment is safe for either stopping them from jumping up on things or giving them a safe spot to jump down if they're going to be.
Yeah, so we put pillows on the ground around the couch when she became old enough and big enough to jump up. And we watched her like a hawk, honestly. Just always eyes on her. Mm-hmm. She did fall a few times. Mm-hmm. And knock on wood, we've been okay. I know it happens to so many people. We talked about this in our pilot episode. So they can be a little fragile when it comes to leg breaks. And it's something you got to watch out for. Mm-hmm. So something that I wanted to say about this a year later, we didn't discuss this on our blog, but here we are now. We can chat about it. Pet insurance.
Oh, yes.
So
something that I think neither of us really knew about or
never knew about pet insurance.
Yeah.
So Shalane, our breeder, asked us if we were going to get her pet insurance. And at this point, we hadn't really heard about it. Mm-hmm. So we didn't know. And we looked to Instagram for help. So I remember posting about this before we got her. Again, when we had the Instagram, such a huge resource for us to learn about the Italian Greyhound community. And we got a lot of helpful insights from that. Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine who was suggested from a vet friend of hers recommended a certain pet insurance for us to get. And we've been grateful to have it because it's just a safety net. Mm-hmm. It's a precaution. And a leg break for an Italian Greyhound could cost anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 from what I've heard. Yep. Canadian or American. I've heard, honestly, the range.
Yep.
$4,000 to $6,000 per leg. And that depends if that's one surgery. Potentially, sometimes they need 2 surgeries. Mm-hmm. And then
we've seen dogs with like both legs, both front
broken
legs
at the same time. Or the leg re-breaks a few months later.
Right.
And it could just be that they jumped and landed funny. Could be they got their foot down a couch, down a bed frame. Mm-hmm. Who knows? So we didn't want to take that risk. And other than trying to prevent them from getting the leg break, my other suggestion, this is the revised, revisited version, would be really to invest in pet insurance. Or make sure you've got savings for if that happens.
And the suggestion that I wanted to add on to this is that we jump-proofed the apartment. And since then, we've really had to focus on bite-proofing the apartment.
Oh, bite-proofing. Tell me what you mean by bite-proofing.
I just mean that things that she wants to grab onto and rip up.
Oh, okay, like destroying, chewing.
Chew
say
proof.
this
chew
as
proof.
she is
yeah, that's a good way to put
chewing a bully stick here.
Yeah, so she loves to chew on things. If she gets toilet paper or a Kleenex, she will rip it up. So we now store our Kleenexes like up high on shelves, and we keep all the doors closed. We make sure that our laundry is well packed away. We've now moved it into the bedroom. We had kind of our laundry out near the laundry machine, and she just
a laundry hamper.
The laundry hamper, thank you. That she just wants to jump up into the laundry and get the socks, and
she's obsessed with socks.
Yeah.
So that's very true. Also on that note, we noticed how much Adelaide likes to de-stuff things. So of course, if you have anything of value or sentimental value that is stuffed, make sure to keep it out of reach. But also beds Now, this is not every Iggy, but for our Iggy in particular, she will de-stuff anything, any bed. I'm not a sewer, but I have re-sewed
God bless you.
too many beds to the point where we have to keep throwing them out.
That's the sound of Adelaide dropping her chew stick on the ground.
Very dramatic. She's upset that I'm ratting her out with her bad behavior.
Yeah.
But we learned from that to not invest in beds anymore. We now let her sleep on blankets.
She loves it. It's one of her favorite things to curl up under a blanket. She's figured out how to get her snoot in underneath, her nose in underneath the blanket, and then lift it up and curl herself underneath. And that's how she puts herself to bed, either on the couch or in bed. And she's completely comfortable like that. Which actually perfectly leads into our final tip. Work on crate training from day one, and it can be doable. So we made crate training a priority, just like, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with potty training for us, because we have a pen set up, and in the pen is where we keep her sleeping arrangement, now pile of blankets, but also that's where the pee pads are, so she knows to go in there if she needs to use the restroom.
It wasn't easy, but it wasn't too hard. I have heard a lot of stories from other Iggy parents that sometimes the crate training is difficult because the dog is either barking or crying for the entire night to the point where sometimes it sounds like the dog is even in distress, like their vocal cords are tired and they've tired themselves out by barking or crying.
The tip that I would add on that I'm not sure may or may not be in the blog post was to set a timer for yourself. That if it's 2 a.m. and the dog is crying, then your perception of time is really not very accurate. Like, it can feel like an eternity that the dog is crying for. And if you set an alarm for 10 or 15 minutes, then we found with her, she's most of the time gone back to sleep by that time.
We also learned from Zach George to not give in to the crying, especially not to give in by giving them a play session. That sometimes you think, oh, well, they're up now, so I should play with them. But this then riles them up and gets them more excited than it does getting them back to sleep.
Yeah. So if like you were saying, that they are really in distress and they're maybe hurting their vocal cords or
maybe hurting themselves physically.
Yeah, sometimes that happens as well. Try and take them out of the pen or crate when the crying has subsided. That if you can catch them in a lull, then you're not rewarding the crying.
Yes. And sometimes for the crate as well, we would ask for a sit or a down to see if we could get the attention first and then reward them with releasing her from the crate.
Right. Just disconnect the reward of getting out of the pen from the behavior that came right before it, which was the crying.
Yeah.
Otherwise they just know that crying gets them out of the pen.
Sometimes too, we would sleep beside the crate. We would take a little time, either if it was the early hours of the morning or at first when she couldn't fall asleep. Another thing we didn't talk about with the crate training is her snuggle puppy.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't find too much success with this, but we have heard really great stories from other Iggy friends, Iggy parents. And this is a little stuffed dog called a snuggle puppy. And
A link in the show notes.
yeah. And it has a little pouch that you place a sort of ticking machine.
It emulates a heartbeat.
Yeah. So it even looks like a little heart, which is adorable.
Yep.
You stick it inside and press the button and it will run for 8 hours or something. Yeah. So it emulates the heartbeat of a litter mate or a mother that sometimes if they're having separation anxiety, which is something really intense. We learned about it in puppy school, dog training, that separation anxiety is not just when they're crying and you're in bed and they're upset. It is really like if they're potentially harming themselves or really prolonged behavior. I'm sure there's more people out there with more experience than us, but we definitely are going to examine this throughout our journey on this podcast to talk about separation anxiety, especially after coming back from COVID-19. Yeah, coming back to work. So, crate training, super important. I wouldn't change that. That is a top 5 tip.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is when we asked on the Toronto Iggy's Society Facebook group, I think it was 70% of people. 71% of people.
I remember.
Thanks for keeping me honest.
I'm keeping you true.
Do sleep with the dog in their bed. So we are in the minority, but we have found it very helpful, especially because there's been times where we've brought her to Jess's family, and then we don't want to force them to have to sleep with the dog.
Or if she has to go to the vet and stay overnight.
Right.
Not being able to sleep with a human would be very traumatic. It's things like that having the ability to sleep in the crate is great.
Yeah.
If your dog can do both, that's really awesome. Because if you prefer to have him in the bed, awesome. The biggest problem for us is our bed is too high. We just made the decision to keep her in the crate.
Yeah.
And she's happy in there. She honestly goes in there herself to chew on a stick, to just sleep, curl up in the blankets, have time away from us.
Okay, bonus tips.
Bonus tips.
Did you have bonus tips?
Yeah, I kind of looked at all of the things that I wish I'd known. And the biggest thing that kept popping out at me was desensitization. So I know we talked about this in the first tip, but desensitizing her to experiences that I now see are a problem, like putting on the harness, putting on clothes, nail clipping. These are all things that now that we haven't been working on it consistently, I find that Adelaide will freeze up when we put on clothes. She will freeze up when we put on her harness. But then the second we take her walking, she's excited and it's not uncomfortable. She's totally happy. There's something about her being in the harness or being in her clothes indoors that just feels foreign to her. And she kind of changes her mood. She gets frozen like a statue. And that's something that I want to work on now. But I think if we had been working on it incrementally earlier, it would have been a bit easier for us now. So if I could go back and tell old Jess and Ryan what to do, I would say work more on the desensitization to things that she doesn't like.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Great.
We had the same tip.
Tip number 6.
We got to meet
desensitization.
Yeah, we got to meet a little Iggy puppy a few days ago, and we were playing around with her, and I was kind of, once she calmed down, I was kind of touching her little feet, her little back paws, and she didn't care. She didn't notice.
Aww.
I don't remember if when Adelaide was little, if she cared or not, but she definitely cares now.
Yeah, I do remember trying to do it in her sleep and she would get a little restless. So every dog is different. It might just be in her personality. This is just not, she doesn't like being touched like that. But again, if we introduced it earlier, I think it would have been an easier thing for us to do now. Another tip that I have would be not to buy clothing before you know your full-grown size of your Iggy.
Yeah, so, unless you're getting them in winter.
Oh, yes, you have to buy clothes for them in winter.
Yeah, we got her in summer, so we got clothes for her that fit for a while, but she didn't really need them during summer. And then by the time she needed them in winter, she had grown out of them.
Yeah, so there's only 2 outfits of hers that I think she's grown out of. But, you know, there's always clothing exchanges and things like that if you've got an Iggy group like we do in Toronto, which is amazing. But if you don't have that, maybe you're going to get an Iggy sibling. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? But I would say to hold off on the shopping. Also because a lot of clothing that you buy for your Italian Greyhound, we found that the regular clothing from pet stores sometimes doesn't fit Italian Greyhounds because of their long legs, long neck, long body, but wide chest. So to buy the Iggy specific clothing is sometimes coming from across the world. There's companies in the Ukraine, there's companies in Colombia, and really cool stuff out there. But if you're going to pay for all those shipping fees and then the clothes don't fit after a few months, it's kind of sad. Yeah. So always just making sure that you've got an idea of what size your Iggy's going to be for us. Everyone said that Adelaide was going to grow more, but she ended up being only 8.5 pounds, and I don't see her growing anymore. She's a year and a month. I think that she's done. I think we should summarize our tips.
Okay.
So, number 1, pick a priority. Nail it.
Yep.
2, social. Find a socialization class for your dog, or find a way of maybe having puppy meetups with dogs that you know are safe for your new puppy to meet because of the vaccinations. And be diligent about it. Make sure that they have lots of socializing time. Also, socializing with humans. We didn't talk about that too much, but being able to meet other humans, which I know is very difficult in COVID-19, but finding your way around that to meet humans safely.
Have your training tips on hand.
And look for more resources for those training tips.
Yeah.
Definitely there are more available than when we first started this article in this podcast for sure.
Yeah, and if you've just gotten a puppy and you feel like you're stuck at home alone, even more than ever, you're not. But there can even be live training that you can get right in your home.
Very cool.
Make sure that your apartment is safe for jumping.
Safe for jumping, puppy-proofed, altogether.
Yeah.
Damage-proof.
Yeah.
Destroyed-proof. That's not a thing.
I know. I was going to say on both accounts that your stuff doesn't get destroyed, but also that your Iggy doesn't get destroyed, but that sounds a little extreme.
I know. Very dramatic. Sounds very Iggy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And number 5, crate training.
Yeah.
So if that's a priority for you, which it was for us, crate training, maybe it's just potty training or training them to sleep through the night. And then the biggest addition to our top 5 would be desensitization. So finding those things that your dog doesn't like and learning how
and force
to
them
like
to do
them
it.
with treats, with positive reinforcement,
yes. Yeah.
and lots of love. Yeah. And then I just had that little addition about the clothes, but that's to save you money. If you want to go crazy and buy clothes,
have at it. It's adorable. We want to see it on Instagram.
Makes for a great Instagram account. Yeah. We watch and we love it.
Yeah.
Pupdates.
We're just going to end off the podcast with a little Pupdate about how Adelaide has been in the last
few
days, week or so, which we're recording this a little while before these episodes get posted, but it's nice to tell you about the exciting things going on in our life. And we want to make this kind of a regular thing so you can follow along what's going on with Adelaide and us.
Yeah. So milestones. Adelaide she hit an Instagram milestone.
Yeah.
6,000 followers.
Yay, Adelaide.
Woo! So we actually wrote a blog post about our following on Instagram. And if you're interested in that, go to our blog. I'm sure we're going to have a podcast about it as well. But we just kind of have a few tips on how we started her Instagram, and followers and the number of followers you have is not the be all and end all of why you have an Instagram. But we're just happy that she's having a good time and we're making new friends. It means we can reach more of you. It means we can talk to more dog owners, Iggy parents, and learn more about you guys.
We also just yesterday got a shipment of clothes from Little Milo's Closet.
So exciting.
And it's, like we were just saying, it's Iggy specific clothing.
Yes.
So she looks so adorable in it.
It's a little like turtleneck at the top.
Yeah.
Long, like covers all 4 of her legs. Hugs into her body closely. So it looks so good on her.
And then in the last few days, we've been doing a bunch of meetups. So we have a few different friends that are new friends and old friends that are just getting puppies. So in the last few days, we have met up with 2 Iggies, 3 floofy mini dogs, and a Dachshund.
So cute.
Yeah. So Adelaide was really great with the Iggies. She was a little too much for the floofy dogs, but it was so cute.
Energy.
I know. She played with that little Iggy for an hour and a half. You're insane, dog. You're insane.
And then they all got tired and they all rested. The Dachshund too.
Yep.
But it's so fun to see how Adelaide has matured as well.
Yeah.
Because when she was a little puppy, Again, her energy was crazy, and then they fall asleep right away, and then they're energized again. But now she can play for longer, but then we also find she'll go to the dog park, come home, and sleep for 6 hours on the couch while we do work. It's kind of amazing. It's just cool to see her growing up and maybe not being as wild and crazy as she usually was, or she was when she was a puppy. But it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. We love you, Adelaide.
We love you, Adelaide. Cue all the belly rubs and scritches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Iggy Parents. You can follow us on Instagram at The Iggy Parents.
Or find us on YouTube. Search for The Iggy Parents, and you'll find us.
This podcast is available where all podcasts are found. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye from Ryan.
And Jess.
And Adelaide.
The Iggy.